With the dead cleared out, we moved toward our rendezvous. Turns out we weren't the only living things in there. A vulture got the drop on us, determined to reduce us to scrap metal. He'd hit a big payday with us cornered.
You were a payday to him? How so?
We were dead killers. You break us down to spare parts, you can fetch a pretty penny on the black market.
But you were there to fight the dead. You were an ally.
Maybe in 2070, when we were the saviors of mankind. By 2075, everybody wanted a piece of us. This guy would have gotten his share, too. But Kane did her part to make sure that didn't happen.
She was well trained. Was she CIA? Winslow Accord?
She was just someone who was always in the right place, at the right time. Before we could move on the Black Station, we had other problems.
What had gone wrong?
We hadn't taken the scavengers into account. They'd figured out they had dead killers in their midst. Kane told us they had a comms relay ahead. If we scramble them, it could lead the vultures away from the Black Station, at least long enough for us to get what we needed.
So much for maintaining a low profile, I suppose.
What did I tell you? The thing about dead killers is there's always a plan B. You don't create the problems, just the solutions. You adapt to what's thrown at you.
Adapt or die.
Yeah. Adapt or die. We plan to regroup with Kane outside of Chinatown. With their comms scrambled, we had one less nuisance to deal with at the Black Station. Now to get the drive and get out of this awful place.
You couldn't take being here, could you? You felt haunted coming back to this city.
The feeling had latched onto me at the safe house. Like I was being watched. Something had their eyes on me.
Something? Not someone?
And I just felt something pulling me, guiding me. I couldn't shake it. Our rendezvous with Kane was just ahead. By the time we rendezvoused with Kane, the dead were crawling all over the street.
What was Kane's plan?
Hit him in the gullet, then bag and tag. Gotta admit, the girl wasn't afraid of a fight. She seemed to welcome it, relish it.
Like yourself?
Like a berserker. Like a dead killer.
What did you find in the Black Station?
Slaughtered CIA staff. We weren't the only ones looking for the data drives. It was a gruesome scene. Kane quickly assembled the drive.
What did you learn? Did you find the information on Deimos?
We found a dossier. A diary, really. A living testament of what happened 15 years ago, and in the years since. It explained Project Corvus, a CIA mind control experiment. These scientists had combined two ancient biochemical compounds, Nova-6 and something called Element 115. They fused them together, created a chemical cocktail, and injected it through their test subjects' DNI. They wanted to control them.
Control them?
Those corpses, below Coalescence in Project Corvus, they weren't patients. They were prisoners, the criminally insane. The scientists believed they could make them well again. Make people better.
But instead, they opened the gateway.
A gateway to Malum. It's another dimension filled with absolute evil. It sounds crazy even saying it now, but they opened it not realizing what they'd done, and they let him through.
Deimos.
Deimos, demigod of dread and terror. He caused the Coalescence disaster, unleashed 6115 upon the world, creating the undead that roamed the Earth. There were details on Taylor's team. They were working for Deimos. Helped him trigger Armageddon. There was also other information on his sister, Dolos, demigoddess of trickery and deception. Deimos, he didn't like her very much.
And the researcher? Did he have a name? Who wrote this document?
Yes. It was... Wait. No. I remember. It said Dr. Salim. It was you. You wrote the dossier on Deimos. You were the man behind Project Corvus. Why didn't you tell me? You created Project Corvus, wrote the report. You pulled me along like you had no clue what I was talking about.
If I had told you, the impact would not have been the same. You know that. That you could not recall is no fault of mine.
After the Black Station, we had to find you. Find out what you knew.
I was in Cairo at the time. Your friend, Khalil.
He brought you to Ramsey Station, humanity's last holdout in Egypt. We knew who Deimos was, where he was from, but we didn't know why. He'd taken over the world, but to do what? To find out why, we had to talk to you. The pieces were coming together. Virus 6115, Taylor's team, the undead, it all came back to Deimos. All we needed was you. Hendricks was unhinged. The idea his friends betrayed mankind to help a deity from another dimension. Kane was in it to the end. By now, she was as obsessed with stopping Deimos as we were. We weren't ready for Cairo, no matter what we thought. This place, if there ever was a place that was the Devil's Lair, this was it. It wasn't just the city. The entirety of northern Africa had fallen to the undead. The walls were covered with memories of the dead, those taken by 6115, lost to this wasteland, the desert for the undead. It was the last place on Earth you'd want to be, but you chose to hide there. Why?
For that very reason, I hoped no one would come for me.
Why? What were you running from?
From what you sought, Deimos.
Khalil was waiting. He was holding you in an interrogation room.
How was Khalil? Happy to see you.
It wasn't a warm welcome. As far as he was concerned, we owed him one for grabbing you. More than a few men gave their lives to bring you in. He hoped it was worth it.
He was angry?
He was tired. Tired of fighting a losing battle. Khalil was a realist. He'd fight to the death for country. But he knew what was coming.
And what was coming?
Extinction. The undead changed everything. The NRC were hit first and hardest. We saw that in Ethiopia. The damage done by the dead didn't even take into account what the water wars did. When the continent dried up and the Nile River Coalition took war to Egypt over the Nile, the last water supply. They were so busy fighting they didn't realize it, too, had dried up. But the rise of the undead? How do you fight an enemy that doesn't need water? Khalil's rage wasn't misplaced. It wasn't personal. He was just barely holding on.